Up till this point, he's all powerful. From tomorrow, it starts to get trickier because you will create enemies in the process.
This is the time when I like to take you through what's in store in the political week ahead. And tomorrow, in case you haven't heard, Sir Keir Starmer will exit number 10 Downing Street, submitting his resignation to the King. And a few minutes later, Andy Burnham will head to the palace, asking His Majesty to form a government, after which he will enter Downing Street. And we are expecting some sort of address from him then. On Wednesday in New York, a status conference will take place in the case of the former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores. They were captured by US military forces on narco-terrorism charges. And on Thursday in Glasgow, the Commonwealth Games get underway, including with Andy Bell's daughter. They'll be running from Thursday until Sunday. The week, however, is going to be dominated by Andy Burnham becoming Prime Minister, and we thought we'd better go through what's likely to happen, and no one better to tell us than the man who knows, the political editor of The Times, Steven Swinford. Hello to you.
Good afternoon, Adam.
Well, before we get to tomorrow, I mean, you're already reporting things happening today. What's going on?
So, I mean, what we're expecting tomorrow is basically a big bang from Andy Burnham. He is trying to get out the traps in two broad areas. He wants to firstly address some cost of living issues, and he's going to be talking about cuts to energy bills, bus fares. We think he might have announced a £2 cut on bus fares, which is big for him. And then some much bigger things, which are in the basket of changes over the longer term. So social care reform, devolution, this new number 10 North. He's actually going to spend part of his week next week in this new number 10 North, which is physically in the old one of the GCHQ sites in Manchester at the moment, pending a new building. So we'll get a kind of this kind of dual approach where there will be some announcements of things that they want to do in the budget as soon as possible, and then there are some longer term reforms that he hopes to achieve over the next 3 years.
And before that, though, he's got to appoint his cabinet, and that means changing faces.
There will be changing faces, and that's going to cause a lot of upset. So we're going to likely see Shabana Mahmood become the new Chancellor. There has been a concerted, vituperative campaign to stop Ed Miliband from becoming Chancellor. That appears to have worked. A lot of really bad infighting and briefing, which Andy Burnham says he dislikes, but obviously that has been a product of the vacuum. And then we're also possibly going to get Ed Miliband then as Foreign Secretary. We're going to see possible changes in defence, maybe a new defence secretary there. We're going to see a new health secretary, and possibly Wes Streeting going back to his old job. So like changes across the board, and also some of Burnham's key allies will get big jobs. So Louise Haigh, a former Transport Secretary, is going to get the role, we think, of Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. Annalise Midgley is going to become the chairwoman of the Labour Party. And there will be losers. There are always losers on days like this. So Darren Jones will be out of government. Steve Reed probably out of government. We think Liz Kendall will be out of government, and so on and so on. So it's the moment when he has to make the choices. And at this point, up till this point, he's all powerful. From tomorrow, it starts to get trickier because you will create enemies in the process.
And what about this new AI secretary?
So we've got a new AI secretary, but we don't know which department that they're sitting in, which sounds like a strange thing, because one of the things that we've heard is that they plan to scrap the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, and fold in some of its functions to business and other parts into DCMS. So yes, we will have a new AI secretary who will sit at Cabinet. We don't know who that's going to be, but it's not clear which department they will actually sit in. And there is a really fascinating insight you get into Andy Burnham's thinking around AI. A lot of the question when you talk to people around him is, look, AI is all very well and good, but who is it for? When they talk to you about the rush to driverless cars in London and the embrace of that, they're asking, well, why are we doing that? That's going to put black cab drivers out of business, is going to have issues for the economy. So as someone put it to me, is that Andy Burnham has this kind of workers before Silicon Valley ethos, and I imagine that will come into play on AI. It's a slightly more cynical view of AI and its transformative powers.
And Steve, is there any way that we will see some sort of exchange or confrontation with the opposition parties involving Andy Burnham between now and the return of Parliament in early September?
Frankly, no. So all of the action, if there is any, will be in the Lords, because that is still not in recess. But MPs are in recess. They've gone back to their constituencies, other than those that will be in London tomorrow to learn their fates in cabinet. So you're in this situation where he's going to embark on a summer tour. He's going to go to all parts of the country to meet voters, but these are usually very controlled events. And we often get these social media clips that are done up after the event. So a lot of it at the moment is about trying to control things and I think limit difficult questions and confrontations. The Tories were up for having another week of Parliament, but that was blocked by Labour. So we will have to wait till September for Andy Burnham to kind of be properly introduced to Parliament and the public.
And obviously, your job, our job is to get as much information as possible. Do you personally feel there's anything improper about the way we've changed our Prime Minister this time round?
It's never for me to judge whether it's improper. I do think, like, when I stand back more broadly, Adam, and I'm sure you'd agree with me, the fact that we've had 7 prime ministers in a decade is extraordinary and just is a terrible look on the world stage. But is also just, more importantly, as a country that has some fundamental problems that need addressing. We have an ailing economy, we have a productivity crisis, and just that level of inconsistency. You've got right now, at this moment, civil servants across Whitehall are preparing briefing packs for yet another round of new ministers, and all of those ministers will have their own priorities, their own desires, and it's another change of direction, Adam. So I think government isn't functioning and hasn't functioned for quite a long time now. So we'll just have to see whether Andy Burnham can avoid the same fate as the many predecessors that have gone before him.
Steve Swinford, wise words indeed. Thank you very much indeed, the political editor of The Times there.